Thanks, Felicia. Hi, guys. Happy Friday. I'm just clicking the buttons here. There we go. This is a fun one. Today we're going to make some really beautiful crystal earrings. And it's a technique that, we've seen a lot. We use it in a lot of projects, but in this one, it's like the focus and it just makes the crystal shine. So what I used was a bunch of like bicones, and I used some charms, and I used some findings that are like different sizes and different like beautiful ones available. And you can really go to town making this personalized for yourself. Like I did so many different versions, and I'll show you guys the ones that I made that I'm wearing when we get to the mat. But these are, they work, pretty fast, especially once you get going. And I also think that it's just the ability to personalize that is the draw for me for making these, because you can just get so creative. So many things you can do. So I think let's jump right in. On the mat, I'll show you everything that I used and then some other new ideas that I've had since I made the samples. But this is the handout, and it's the one that you would have got from the website when you registered. If you still need it, we can drop it in the chat. And what I used is I used these findings, and there's a bunch of them. So they come in gold and silver. They also have different like hoop sizes and configurations, like a lot of different shapes. So if you just go and check out, if you look under assorted connectors, you'll see a lot of different things you can play with. I used Czech crystal and I used AB in all of the cases that, that I made samples there. They just really shine. They have like a color rainbow effect to them. And we're getting into where we're going to have summer and sunlight, and it's going to be fun to have something sparkly. So definitely. I used some stainless steel ear wires, and you can choose whether or not you want to do a jump ring. I put a jump ring on here, and then on one of the ones that I made today, I didn't even put a jump ring. So I think either way is going to be great. Any charms are optional. If you'd like to add charms, go for it. And so the mediums that I am using and the tools are 26 gauge wire, and the artistic wire is nice and soft, so that's what I've been using. It's easy to kind of maneuver around the form. And then some of the tools that I'm using that are non-standard, I mean, we've got chain nose pliers and things like that, but flush cutters. But I've been using the what's this called? This is the bail making plier, and all this is in the handout, so you don't have to memorize it. But I've been using the small loop on this, and I just use it one time to make this connection here. This is that little kind of like charm place to make a charm hang. And you could easily do that with just some regular round nose pliers too. So if you don't have this tool, you can still do this project, no problem. Nylon Jaw Pliers. I use these because they straighten the wire really nicely. And again, there's a part number for that in the handout too. All of those are here. And then your just regular wire working tools. You'll probably need the regular suite of chain nose and some square nose, bent nose, just for your jump rings, and flush cutters. Of course, you're going to need some flush cutters. So let me grab mine. I have my chain nose, square nose, regular chain nose. I've got some round nose pliers here, and I've got bent nose and flush cutters. So off camera here, I've got a stack of tools just waiting in case I need them. And I'll just start with my flush cutters and my nylon jaw. Those are the ones I'm going to need first. And then colors. So I made these in Crystal AB, and those are the ones that are described in the PDF. But today I was thinking, I really feel like working with green. And I was inspired by another one that I'd been working on a round form, where I just grabbed a strand of fire polish. And so I thought I'll do a crystal version of that. And that'll be so fun. And I have this ready to go here. So what you'll need when you get your wire out is you're going to want to cut about, 20 to 26 inches or so. And that's if you want to do something roughly the size of this one. And it's variable. It's really variable. Like, for example, I should show you my earrings that I'm wearing. This is from the smaller form. So this pack came with 3 sizes. You've got a really teeny one, a medium, and then the big one. So that's this one. And then I used these to make this little other set. And I used some leftover crystals that I had. So this one just had only repeats of 5 versus this other one that has 7, 6 or 7, depending. I did 2 versions, so one had 6, one had 7. You'll need more like 20 for something this size, and then more like 26 inches for a big one like that. And that's just how much 26 gauge wire to cut. So we're doing a big one for this demo, so I'm going to cut 26 inches of 26 gauge, so easy to remember, right? And I'm going to use my big connector here. And that's this one here at the back. They're actually individually bagged, which is really cool. And I also thought it was kind of nice that these bags are resealable. So when you break a package open, you can store all your extras in there. It's kind of nice. It's a little thoughtful thing there. Okay, so let's measure. I have a tape measure here. I'm going to cut out, let's go to the 26. And I'm just going to hold one end here on the 26. And then just very gently unspool it as I go. Oops. Try that again. There we go. And the reason I'm going slow is you see how when it's coming off the spool, it's starting to get a little, almost like I could kink it accidentally. So I'm just being really careful that I don't do that. And throughout this entire project, speed is the ticket. If you start going too fast with the wire, at least in my experience, I tend to get more folds and more kinks in my work if I go super, super fast. So there's our 26 inches. I'm going to set this aside, and I don't need my tape measure anymore. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my my Nylon Jaw Pliers, and I'm also going to grab a pair of my chain nose pliers and use the chain nose pliers to hold one end, and then take the nylon jaw and slide it down. Oops, and I'm going to hit my monitor, so let's see if I can, there we go. Even just one pass is great. And the only thing to note is every time you do that, it will work hard in your wire just a little bit. And that's not going to be a big deal till you start getting toward like the end of the project, but you will notice it. You'll certainly notice it as you're going. All right, so getting started, one of the things to think about, and if anyone is asking questions about different gauges, I've just seen that pop up totally. You can do 24 gauge. I think it's very good. The thing that I went to 26 gauge here for is that for a beginner, a softer, smaller wire is going to be much easier to work with. But once you get this technique figured out, 24 gauge is going to be just fine. You can make that work too. The hard part for this project is getting started. So one of the things that when I first learned this, I was taught by, actually I was taught by Tracy Proctor how to do this in person in Tucson back in 2020. So that was the first time I ever learned this technique. And I found that once I had it started, I was just going to town. But getting one started, I would waste a lot of wire, and like I would have to take it apart and start over. So my trick for starting it is I measure about 1/2 inch or so of the end of my wire. And then I put my component, whichever component I want to work with, on top of it. And then I bend that shorter end up. And once you've got that, you can bring the longer one kind of like forward a little bit and the other one kind of backward so that it hugs the connector. And that's really all there is to it. And then you just want to take that shorter one and coil it around once or twice more. And then take your chain nose pliers and just flatten it a little bit. You can decide where you want to start, and I'll grab my other earring for reference and show you guys where I started my crystal. And this is something to do. It really doesn't matter very much on your first earring. The trick here is matching your second earring to it, right? So here's one way you can do it. Just go ahead and move this up and slide it and see. There we go. There you go. So then once you have it where you want it, give it a little pinch. Nothing too crazy so it doesn't mar your wire, but just once you've got it there, it's great. Grab your flush cutters and just give that a snip right there. And then one more time, I'm going to grab my chain nose and I'm going to flatten it. And that's all you got to do once you've got that on there. That does take a little practice. So, you know, just try it. And then if you feel like you want to start over, that's okay too. Once you have it on there though, you've got it. It's ready to go. So let me bring this around. Now, from now on, we're going to have to go through the center of our component as we work. So what I do is I kind of like push it through first with my thumb, and then I'll grab the wire and pull it until it's free. And now I'm going to work. I like to work from the back to bring it forward. If you like working the other way, just go the other direction. Start it up here and go that way. And then you'll have it working from front to back versus back to front. Just pick one and go with it. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. And you'll find after you work for a while with you'll develop your own technique that you like. So let's get some crystal. Move these over. All right, so let's slide on one crystal and bring it all the way down. Just, you know, being mindful that I don't bend my wire in any kind of way that makes it kind of have a memory of a fold. So just kind of letting that gentle spool just stay there like that. We got the crystal on here. And now I'm just going to bend it forward so it crosses here. And then just very gently push through with my thumb. And come along behind it. Pull that wire through. And then just bring it up here along the back. So there's one wrap. And we'll do that again. We'll bring it forward. Push it through with your thumb, pulling it through the back, just everything really gentle, moving real slow. Again, just coming around the front. I'm a 3-wrap person. You could do 2 wraps and it would look great too. But there's 3 and 3, just kind of matched it. And then I have a little thing that I've added over time, just as I've made a lot of these that I like to do. I like to make sure that this is flat here. So let me show you what I mean. You see how this is sticking up? It's not as flat against the connector as the rest of the wraps are. And so if I was to try to come along and push my coils together, which I also like to do, this one might get pushed above my set of coils. So before I do any coil alignment, I'll take my pliers, chain nose again, and flatten that first connection down. And that little tip there made my work level up. And it was just something I came up with playing over and over again. And now I can straighten my coils, and that makes it look really spot on. And the wire's so soft that I do the same thing on the back a little bit. Get that looking really good. And it'll be kind of second nature after you start making these a lot that you'll just do that without thinking about it. These little tweaks and little measures and little things that just kind of make your work extra good. Great, so here's our another crystal in there. And I'm gonna just kind of give it a tilt. See, kind of just giving it a little tilt forward. And then bring that wire, fold it forward like that. Push it through with my thumb. I grab the wire here at the back. And then just pull and kind of like up and away from myself like that. Do that one more time. I'm going to bring it forward across the component. Gently push it through with your thumb. And avoid it kinking there. Do that one more time. All right, same thing again. I'm going to do this little flattening along the back. I'm not doing that too tight, by the way, because I do want to make sure that I can still adjust the position in case I want to later. So these are still able to move a little bit on the frame. And that you might care about that later when you're adjusting the counts to match each other on the side. So I'm not like really squeezing with these pliers. It's just a very gentle like encouragement to flatten down so I can make my coils straight. Yeah. And so, yeah, I totally agree. That's a great tip. Let's see. I'm gonna bring that down. And let's see, what else can I share as we're going? One of the other things I think that I didn't mention already is I'm kind of holding holding the crystal a little bit as we make that first turn, that first pull down. You push it through. Pulling up here, back around the front, push it through. One more time. Flatten that down. These quills are already pretty good looking. This one could use a little bit more straightening out here. And there we go. So let's see, how many have we done? We've done 3. So let's get 3 more on here and then we'll show I'm going to go a little faster and we'll show the bail, making the little bail for our charm. Around and pushing it through. One more time. And if at any point you feel like your wire is getting a little unruly, you can use your nylon jaw plier on it again. And here I'm going to, a little gap. I'm going to just give that a little bit of a nudge in this direction and fix that up. So I'm constantly adjusting that spacing, I think, as I go without even really thinking about it. It's just one of those things that you'll see it and you'll be like, ah, I'm going to move that. I'm going to nudge that in a little different direction. That's totally the way to do it. All right. And let's put on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got one more to go, and then we'll make that bail. And so at this time, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get there. I'm going to have it be in the center. But I'll show you how to figure out if it's not exactly centered, how to figure out if it is or isn't, and then also how to fix it if you need to move it. That's one thing I love about this this technique is that there's no set in stone forever. Like if you feel like you need to slide things around, you can. You can do that at any point. Even after we make the bail, you can still do that. So I'm looking at it, and the bail, you want to bring your pliers over. And again, I'm using these. If you're using regular round nose, use those. That'll be just fine. Position the small one on the outside. So I'm just going to move it up just a little. And just take a look at where your wire is. And I haven't done this cleanup here yet because I might move it. But I'm just looking to see, I'm not exactly centered, right? I'd like to maybe be over a little more. And so this the goal is to have this wire, the one we're gonna wrap around, to have it be right up against these pliers when we start that process. So let's do that. Let's move it first. Let's set these down for now. And let's just give it a little nudge. Everything still moves really nicely. And I think that's going to be perfect. So flatten that down, straighten my coils out. This side could use a little more help. So we're gonna do that. There we go. All right, now we're ready. So again, I've got the bail making pliers out. Put those just right at the center. I'm going to turn so you guys can see. And then what you want to do is just rainbow. We're going to go in a rainbow with this wire. We're going to rainbow over and across the front. And so there's our little bail. Before you take it off the plier, give it one coil. So I'm just going to bring this through. Oops, sorry about that. I hit the camera. So wait till the seasickness goes away here. All right, there we go. And then just bring it up around the back. And there you are. It's all locked in. And gently remove those pliers, set those aside. And there's our little veil. Now let's finish it. So just keep going around. All right. So I'm going to slide it a little bit, just a tiny bit. It's got a little more motion than I want it to have. I feel like that's a good center. It doesn't need to be perfect, just centered enough. And then same thing we were doing with our crystal. I'm going to flatten the place where my wire crossed in front of my connector. Then straighten out my coils. Then flip it over. Same thing.
Hey, Danielle, it's Carmi.
Hey.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know right away, Cindy just chimed in. It's brilliant. I wish you could see everybody smiling at this last technique you just did.
Oh, thank you guys. That means a lot to me. I'm having one of those days where like I just love having some extra encouragement, so I'm happy. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I love this technique. And I'm proud of that one because I think I invented it. I'm not sure. I'm sure someone else has done it, right? But
yes, well, today I'm realizing everyone's starting to refer to themselves as the Wicksters. So your community is very happy to see you today.
Oh, thanks, guys. That's a cool. I think my in-laws would love that too. But they would love hearing their name like that. And so yeah, so from here, all I gotta do is just kind of like a repeat of what we did on the side, right? We just kind of like went all the way down, and then we've got the little bail there, and I'm just gonna do the same thing, just kind of hold it in position, fold forward, and going across. And there we go. All right. Just flattening that down, fold forward, same thing here. And you'll get to speed. Like when you start working with these, you'll start getting faster and faster. Gonna give that a little position forward. And it's looking pretty good. I think I'm gonna pop these on later. That way I will not get pinched on St. Patrick's Day. And just flattening. Those coils look good, so I don't need to do anything there. That one looks good. All right. One more here. We've got 3 more to go, and then we've got it. I'm enjoying playing with wire, like especially after last week. Last week was a lot of stitching, right? That was a whole lot of seed beads. And for anyone who missed it, we have the replays up. It's we did a braided, what was it called? Can't remember what we called it. It was a 5-strand braid with seed beads. And that idea to do something like that originally came from Maria. She sent me a message about, well, I'd like something like this. And I'm like, oh, and then I kind of came up with over Christmas a way that I felt like we could get it into an hour class. There we go. One more. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's number 6 here. Open that forward. All right. And it's came out really good. I don't not always this lucky. I gotta be honest. It doesn't always like completely line up, and it's not far off now. I could move this one up just a smidge and it would be right on there. Once you have that like exactly as you want it, then you can go a little bit with a little bit more pressure and give the top and the bottom one a little extra pressure. I'm gonna trim this side. Actually, I'm going to bend it down a little bit. I think I want this to be my front, so I'm going to trim it back here. Some folks really love to see, and I'll explain what that decision process was, but some folks really would love to see the wire. Let's see how the wire crosses here and have that be their front. And sometimes you like to have the crystal be the star and have that be the front. So whichever side you like that to be, what I did here when I was ending my side is I gave it a little bend and I finished it on that side so that my cut end is on the reverse, right? It doesn't really show up that much anyway, but if you wanted to go to that level of detail, there you go. So yeah, and it seems like it's pretty centered. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We're really good for time, so we can play some more. I'm gonna throw a charm on here. So the charms I used on the big earrings were like this, and the charms I used on my little earrings were from one of those 2-packs that they have. If you go into the store, they have those little 2-packs where they charms that go together. So that's what I did there. I grabbed one of those, and they even had jump rings on them already, and I just popped them onto that. The big ones, I went for the larger charms. So I found some of these. Lost the other earring here somewhere. There it is. Okay. So part of the fun for me is just choosing charms. I really like charms, and I'm always looking for ways to incorporate them. And so that was just more inspiration there that you can go and use. But today I was thinking for these that I might go with something a little more like, because the silver is great, but I was looking for a shamrock and I couldn't find one. So now I was thinking, what if I did some green hearts? And again, these also have jump rings, so they're ready to go. And that's going to be perfect. So sky's the limit. Whatever charms you want, all of these are in store, so you can go and get them, and any others that you like. Just like if you go, just know you're going to leave with a lot of stuff, because when I went, I overbought, as I usually do. So I'm going to use some bent nose pliers. This is just the way I like to do jump rings. So bent nose, and I've got some square chain nose. And here's our jump ring. Let's go over here and find the seam. So when I find the seam, I'm looking for it by kind of feeling for it with my fingers. Once I find my seam, I just kind of point that away from myself, and then take those bent nose pliers. And this is in a lateral motion. We're just going to open our jump ring. And making sure that I keep front facing front. Just going to pop that on there. And let's close it up. That's really cute. Yeah, that came out really nice. I'm loving that. Okay, so now we need some ear wires. Grab this one in. And I did, let's see, on the sample, I put the ear wires on with a jump ring first. And that's great. It gives it a lot of wiggle, a lot of sway. But then on these ones, I wanted to just try it without. So these will fit perfectly on, if you're using these connector frames, these are going to fit perfectly with lots of wiggle, lots of room. They worked really nicely. And it keeps them so that when they're on the ear, they're facing forward. which in an earring, I've discovered lately with earrings, just a quick thought on that, is that even if it's sideways when it's hanging while you hold it, once it's on your ear, everything's moving around. And it doesn't actually really matter if it's totally facing forward or not, unless you're, for some reason, really wanted it to be like that. So either way, there's a way to do it, whatever your preference is. And so I think what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to just go straight to the component. But just know you could do anything, that it all works, right? And here's some regular chain nose. And oh my gosh, yeah, Carmi, that's a great idea. Carmi said do a tassel. Oh yeah, I really love tassels. That would be perfect on this, wouldn't it? And then I'm just gonna close that up there. Push that down. There it is. We made an earring that fast. Woohoo! Now I need to make another one, right? So we're doing really good on time. I would love to hear from you guys if you would like me to do, I can do a couple things. I have all these connectors in front of me. Got the rest of this pack. It's smaller. I've got a round shape. The process is exactly the same no matter what you're using. The only note I was going to give is that if you're going to do something like this, it's possible. It's totally possible. Use a smaller bead. So if you want to use something that has a I don't know how to explain, a sharp turn, and it's not a sharp turn per se, but it's definitely not a smooth transition, to go around something like that, switch down to a 4mm bead. You'll have an easier time wrapping a form like this with a smaller bead. If you use a larger bead, it's just going to jump that, and the feature that might disappear in your design, or might become a burden that you have trouble like navigating around. So smaller bead on a form like that, definitely like 4mm, go with that. But round, sky is the limit. On a round shape, you can do anything you want. You can have any beads you want, any size beads you want, any shape, mix up the shapes, anything you want to do, you just do it and it will be beautiful.
Danielle?
Yeah.
I have a really good designer challenge for you.
Sure, yeah.
What if you wanted to hang something in the middle now that you've already put the ear wire on it? How could you get something to dangle to stay center?
To stay centered?
Yeah.
The very first thought that jumped in my head would be to put a jump ring on either side here. And that would make it so that you could have another jump ring that joins those two here in the center. And then you would need maybe one more to make a charm face forward. We could try that. We could definitely try that. I think I even have some jump rings in front of me. Another thought would be to just make another bail. And we could do that too. Which would you rather see? We could make another bail here that faces down. You can use your, I would probably take my ear wire off first and then do it.
Yeah, Danielle, try the bail, because
Bail?
I think you invented that.
And right when I said that, I realized I should go back through Sarah Lovecraft's and see, because I know she's the reason I have these pliers. So I bet she's done something like it. So I don't know. I just want to make sure I at least like say Sarah might have also like came up with the same ideas. And let's see. Let's figure out. I'm trying to guess how much to cut. Let's think about this. So I'm going to go with like 8 inches. I'm going to do 8 inches because I think it's probably going to be too much, but not too little. That always makes me think of the slinky. I've heard that the wire spools do that. Cool. Okay, flatten that out. All right, so I'm going to do that same thing we did before, where I'm just going to bring the wire underneath and maybe push it flat down on the mat. And then bring this wire up to meet that wire. And then just kind of pull. See, these guys are crossing each other. We're just going to pull them together. And then bend that other wire back. Go around one more time. Yeah, I'll go around. There we go. And this is my front. So let's go ahead and let's push this tail just behind. Okay, so taking a look at it. I'm gonna trim that right there. And flatten that. A little pokey. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. Okay, so I'm going to bring this to where it's like at the center. And I remember we want it to hang down. So I'm going to just keep going down. And maybe flip it. Let's chain those pliers back. Okay, so I want to be in the center. Let's grab these. And bring these to right here. How's my camera doing? I feel like it drifted down. There we go. Okay, let's bring this around, and I'm going to push the wire through because I've ended up working in the front of my component. Let me show you what I mean actually by that. So my wire currently is crossing in front of my component here. So I'm just going to push it through before I put the bail making pliers on there. Center my bail making pliers, and then we're going to do that rainbow thing again. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off camera there. I'm going to rainbow around, down, and now I'm behind the component. So there's our little bail. Let's come up in front. Let's push it through one time. And there's that. I'm going to take the pliers out. Push that out a little closer. Okay, so let's just finish that coil. Let's go around one more time. And once more. And finish at the back. Okay, some adjustments are in order. We've almost got it. Let's just slide it a little bit. And I think that's going to be good. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten all that back down, make sure that it's staying in place there. It kind of worked, right? I think so. And so now we can put both our ear wire back on, and then we could put a bunch of charms. So let's do this one first, and then I got to figure out what charm to put in the middle. Open this a little more. There we go. Almost there. Okay. Looks good. Okay. Wow. I was a little worried it wouldn't fit, but it does. Look, it fits really good. You can get that right on there. And then let's see what else we can do. We could do another for heart. Yeah, Mabel, I think beginners can totally do this. One of the things that you'll struggle with the most is just getting the wire not to kink when you're pushing it through the component. Brand new people, I always tell brand new folks, and I taught a group of Girl Scouts this a couple of years back, and I have another troop that I was working with that when they do their jeweler badges, their wire working is one of the things. So I always tell them, bigger component, start with a big one, because it's easier for you to get your whole thumb in there and get the wire not to spool. If you're working with something small, like you're working with one of these, that's advanced. then you're getting into where you want to have some experience and success with this technique before you try, because now you're trying to bring it through a much smaller shape, and it's going to kink up on you more than it would otherwise do. The bigger the component, the luckier, easier. I mean, you can even just try it on a bar at first, just to get the hang of how it feels to coil the wire. If you're new to wire working, like a flat bar, you could try that and see how that treats you. And if you like that, then keep going. And if not, then, oh guys, look what I found. That's going to be really cool. Yeah. Okay. And it really looks Celtic because it's got the little Celtic knot key. Look at how cute that is. Okay. I think I found the charm we're going to put in the center. Let's do it. Okay, let's do this one with so I'm back to my square nose now. This is the square nose again. And there's the seam right there at the top, looking for the seam on that jump ring. I got my bent nose pliers, they're coming back. Open that. I liked this charm because it has some height to it. I'm not 100% sure if it's gonna be like, it might need a jump ring or something if it's not hanging in the center like we like it. But let's have a look and see. And this is occasions like this where a bent nose plier really shines, because you can get into this little space and get that jump ring to close. Okay. Let's lay it out and see if you like it. What do you think? Is it too high? Oh, it's going to be perfect on the smaller one. Like it's going to be, if I did the same exact design on the smaller, you could see.
Danielle, Valerie just named the earring for you. It's the key to your heart.
Aw, Valerie, that's brilliant. Oh, I love it. Hey, Valerie, do you think I need to put jump rings to make it, should the key be in the center, or is it good as it is? What do you think? I don't know. I think I'm going to play with it. But I love it. And then that name is perfect. So I'll finish the other pair and we'll post it with or the other, pair to this one. That'll be so cool. Yeah, thanks for the great name. That's really good. A few crystals above the key. Yeah. Okay, that's another way we could do it. We could even just grab the crystals we've got. And then if you just wanted to take either some stronger gauge wire or a head pin, or sorry, an eye pin would be even better. You could do an eye pin down from here. It would be the right height, I think. If you're working with the big one, or just make a version of that same one on here, and it would work. I think so, yeah. Yeah, I actually love the challenges. I was seeing a joke about on the fly. The design on the flies are the ones that I actually really love, because then you can just go a little crazy, and everyone's so nice. Like, even if I make mistakes, which I do, everyone's really nice about it. So I just try. It makes me braver to try more and more stuff, right? So these are all the earrings so far, and then this really cool one that I actually I'm going to do another one of these. Now I'm actually looking at it thinking it needs something in the center too, right? Nobody asked this yet, but I'm wondering if anyone is interested in doing this in reverse. Like, you can use the same exact technique to build the beads on the inside. It'll totally work. And I think it's just getting used to pulling the different direction. But you would be getting the bead on here and bending it and then just coiling the other way. So yeah, you can make the beads go in or out. That's great, really great suggestions. You guys always come up with the best ones. Yeah, so the rest of the connectors in here, I saw a quick question pop up earlier. I was working with the big one, the largest one from this set. And if you missed the set before I took it apart, here it is again in gold. And it's just these oval shapes. And I worked with the bigger one first, and then I worked the smaller ones on the medium size. And I've yet to do one on the small, but I'll definitely do that. I'll probably do that with 4mm crystal though, because that seems like a more symmetry there. And you could get a lot more detail. And then another question I get asked a lot with this technique is if you run out of wire. One thing that I do is I have a little jar of scraps like this. So this is what's left over from when we made the bail and the earrings. And so I have a little jar where I just kind of, I'll take these and smooth these out and then maybe let them go into a little bit of a spoolable, drop them into that jar. When you end up in a situation where you just need one more, you can just repeat the process we did when we started this earring and add another one. It really doesn't show. Like you'll finish one coil here, maybe two, and then start a new one, and you'll have maybe 4 coils instead of 3. But honestly, it doesn't show very much, and I think that it's totally great. Oh yeah, and I was seeing Carmen was writing about, so Lena is the expert on wire wraps. Like, she does amazing. I cannot wait to see what she creates. And I was just thinking Lena would probably have a great suggestion for how to add wire in the middle of a project too. I feel like she's got a tutorial out there telling people how to do that. So I'm going to ask her, and if she does, I'll try to post it so that it's like fresh on the feeds and stuff. Because I feel like she's done this. Like, she's done one, like, here's how to add like a reel at least, right? Yeah, so I will share that. Any other questions from you guys? Let me know if there's anything I missed or more ideas or great ideas. Oh, thanks, Lena. And thanks, Maria. Awesome. Okay, well, maybe I'll just use we have a little extra time. I'll show you guys what we've got coming up. We've got some really fun stuff. Next week, we're gonna do a different style of class. It's not really a class per se. It's a forum, like a question and answer forum. And it's just gonna be all about seed beads, beading thread, needles. Every question you might have as a new seed beater. So if you're not a seed beater and you would like to get into seed beading, it's really rewarding, really meditative, really wonderful thing to have as a skill, as a jewelry designer. So if you'd like to start seed beading and you're brand new, which I know a lot of you guys are already seed beaters, so like you're already sold, but come anyway and help us support the new people with questions. And maybe you'll also catch, like, I tried to put a little bit of, historical stuff in there about beads and things that might just be fun to hear and interest. Yeah, it's a free class. And then, yeah, what else? We've got, after that, we're doing a really beautiful earrings project. So, and while you're feeling the beautiful green, we teamed up with Marta Jewelry to create these beautiful earrings. And this is her pattern that she did for John Bead. And so this is on the michaels.com/classes. You can register and get the PDF like today. And it's also all the beads. So all the beads I used are at Michaels, all the findings and everything. So you can find out how to make these with us. That's the class we're going to do week after next. This is going to be really fun. And she did do 2 bonus patterns for us that are on our blog at blog.johnbead.com. You can go in and download those now too. They came out really pretty. And then after that, we're going to do some daisy chains because, it is spring. And so I felt like we needed to do some really pretty, just pops of color. I threw these on a magnetic clasp. You don't have to do that. You can put any clasp you want, but I like how they just pop on. And these are very stackable, right? So really fun design, very quick to make. And this is a great beginner seed bead project, which is a good complement to the intro class we're doing. Because daisy chain is one of the first stitches that a lot of new seed beaders learn. So we're gonna do one of those. That's all size 8 seed beads, so really fun, nice and easy. And then we're doing our workshop, our 2-hour workshop. We're going to be doing a button cuff. It's really, really fun. Herringbone with 6/0 and 8/0 seed beads. We've got some 11/0 decorative on the sides. This button is one that I got in Michael's at the sewing section, but you can also use our handmade buttons that we did 2 classes ago. And really the focus of the class, we'll do a review of herringbone for anyone who wants to see that. But the real focus is making the buttonhole and how to measure it and other little tips and tricks that we like to share as we go. And that's it in a nutshell. That's all the stuff. Unless I'm forgetting, I did have one more like inspo thing that I could share that I brought up, but then I forgot to bring the actual earrings. But you can also grab these hoops and just throw crystals and chain on them. if you're looking for a way to use up your leftover crystals from this project, you can throw them on these hoops and put a chain. And I've got a picture of that posted. It's in our group. It's posted on my Insta, and you can see like all the chain hanging. And I sat that next to me and realized I didn't bring the earrings up. So that was kind of silly. What else? I think that's everything I've got for now. I'm working on April, but I'll have something to show you on that really soon too. So yeah, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. And thanks, Felicia. Thanks for doing the cameras and all the wonderful stuff for us. It's been a really good class. I had a lot of fun with you guys. I'm glad to be here. And I want to wish you the most creative weekend. You have a really good time, and reach out if you have questions. If you make anything today or tomorrow over the weekend, we love seeing your posts. So if you post at hashtag Make It With Michaels and then hashtag John Bead, you can share also in our bead group, Bead Projects and PDFs by John Bead. That's a Facebook group that we have a lot of beautiful inspiration there. So I hope to see you guys on the internet out there and next week too. So lots of love to you and have a great weekend.